So many cars, yet so few plugs. Welcome to the Urban EV Podcast, where we speak with industry leaders and EV owners with boots on the ground to read the tea leaves on the direction of the green energy revolution. I'm your host, Rob Hoffman.
And I'm Scott Lissy.
Today, we're joined by Andrew Richard, Chief Revenue Officer at Electrify EVSE, and Wayne Price, VP of Engineering at Electrify Hub. Electrify EVSE is a pioneer in mobile charging infrastructure, launched from the proverbial garage to leading the industry in electrical vehicle supply equipment turnkey solutions. Andrew and Wayne are going to share how they are bridging the critical gaps in fleet electrification and shaping the future of mobile EV charging. Andrew, Wayne, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Scott. My name is Andrew Richard with Electrify EVSE. Been in the industry for 13 years and have been providing turnkey full solutions all across the country, Canada, and even Costa Rica.
My name's Wayne Price. I'm Vice President of Engineering for Electrify Hub. I've got over 40 years experience in developing and implementing disruptive technologies, serial entrepreneurs, then maybe 4 or 5 startups, and been focusing the last 3 or 4 years strictly on solving problems with infrastructure for EVs.
Wonderful. Now, can you tell us a little more about Electrify Hubs and its role in the industry?
Yes. So what we're finding a lot out there is that there are businesses that want to convert their old ICE fleets into electric fleets, especially now with a lot of the mandates. I'm here in California, ground zero. So a lot of these operators feel like they have a gun to their head, electrify their fleets. In fact, there are legal mandates for them to do so, especially diesel to some cleaner form of energy. So the big, I would say, stumbling block on that is a lack of infrastructure on the grid and lack of public infrastructure to charge vehicles. And so we fill that gap. Electrify Hub basically builds a grid on wheels. So we pull this thing into your lot. It's got DC fast chargers on it, and you can start charging your cars immediately. So it removes that obstacle of not having grid connectivity to be able to charge your vehicles. And it's been very, very well received in the industry. Where we are powered with a greener type of fuel. We don't use gas or diesel. We use renewable propane or compressed natural gas, which has that much lower carbon footprint. And it's ubiquitous because they use that type of fuel for agriculture out here in California. You can literally roll up to any location in the state, and within a few hours, you can have fuel delivered to our units and you're charging.
Okay, so you're building these self-sustaining grids for the fleets themselves, but you're also providing the propane or the alternate fuel, the greener option to basically power those generators?
Yes, we do. We're a turnkey, soup to nuts. We handle all the permitting. We handle all the delivery. We do everything. Really, the only thing you have to do is plug and play. It's just like pulling into a standard public charger that works.
Your business right now is booming in California. That is specifically because of the mandate from the legislature over there, or is this business catching on throughout the country?
No, we're not only in California. We're in every state in the United States. I mean, this isn't just a California thing. California is an early adopter, as you know, and CARB is very aggressive with some of these mandates. So I would say that the path to electrification in California is going to be quicker than some of the other states.
Yeah, not surprising. And Andrew, can you tell us a little more about how Electrify EVSE, how it plays its role in the industry along with Electrify Hub?
Absolutely. So we've done national rollouts for some of the largest EV charging companies in the country. We were their go-to to provide infrastructure. And back in 2018, 2019, we started to hear from industry experts, the people that we work with directly, that, hey, lead times for some of this switchgear, lead times for some of this infrastructure that you're going to require is going to be, starting at 19 weeks to start at 24 weeks. Now it's 24 months now, and we don't have
All
eye.
right, it's a serious backlog.
Of just being able to provide the simple level 2 stuff, Rob. I mean, even getting that infrastructure in was becoming arduous with the idea that every time somebody was coming out to survey an area, a representative from the city, they were noticing, hey, there's a crack here. You got to fix that before we pass you for your electric vehicle chargers. So there was just becoming such an issue with getting through the paper trail. And then once you get through the paper trail, now you're doing the ordering process. And we work with some of the largest providers of electrical equipment in the country. And they're saying, hey, you got to need a long lead time here. I've got projects that have started in 2022 that are just finally getting completed, just because of the long lead times. I mean, these are 30 level 2 chargers, DC fast sprinkle. I mean, they're large operations. The onesie twosies, we can get those done pretty quickly.
So is this more of a regulation or a supply chain issue?
Well, it's a combination of both. To tell you the truth, supply is, everybody's trying to push for electric vehicle charging as quickly as possible because everybody's got cars in their fleet that are either just sitting there. Electric buses are sitting at depots and they have no way to charge them because there's no way to bring the infrastructure in. There's a difficulty with bringing the power that's required into their facilities, especially out, on the East Coast. A long lead time just to even get the right plans to where we're going to put the substation. And that's millions of dollars if they have to put in a new substation and then run those lines. And there's another millions of dollars. And arguably to make these requirements that we need to make this transitional shift, a paradigm shift in the transportation market, we've got a lot of power that needs to be provided in many different aspects.
What about the federal government's role in this and, in the NEVI funds and whatnot that are apparently frozen right now? How does that
Yep.
play into your vertical and your approach to business right now?
Well, ultimately, most of the people that I work with, their corporation has requirements to meet sustainability goals. So maybe they had a goal to be much large, very aggressive. We want to change our whole fleet over, but now they're taking smaller steps, right? Let's find out what we need for the next 3 years. How long is it going to take that to get in, Andrew? Okay, well, let's take a look at your map, but we also have another option. We can bridge the gap in many different ways. And that's where Wayne comes in. He could take the information that I give. I go on site. I give them a better and a best situation, right? To accommodate them over the next 5 years to bring in the fleets that they want to bring in. So we can then take the infrastructure monies that we would require to build out what they will need over the next 5 to 10 years. And then we can give that information away and say, look, from a hard infrastructure perspective, this is what they're going to need. Here's how many cars they need. This is how much energy they're going to be required on a weekly basis. And then Wayne puts together that dynamic. He says, look, this is going to cost you this much money. But we don't know where we're going to be in 3 years. We don't know if your company's going to grow even larger. So are we going to take a proactive approach to where Wayne can get you the exact same requirements that you need, meet some of your sustainability goals with the types of fuels that he uses, and turn that into an opportunity where we can bridge the gap to where you're going to be in 3 to 5 years.
So this is a true hybrid solution for the grid. Wayne, talk to me a little more about the alternate fuels that you're using and the green credibility of how you're tackling this right now. Now, obviously, as you both mentioned here, that for various reasons, internal requirements that fleets are trying to electrify, they're trying to go green. But how much of a compromise is this when they bring in, an alternate fuel source to power the grid?
Well, that's a kind of a complex question because there's really not one answer that fits all situations. I mean, one, it depends on where you're at and what your supplier uses to fuel the grid, right? It could be
Right. Even grids are not all green, even when you're truly
exactly.
plugging into them.
So we are cleaner than most grid tied solutions that are out there, and with the exception of some states like California, with lots of renewable, and parts of Texas. But even so, one of the things that we provide is backup power. So in the state of California, you may have renewable power. However, if anybody's lived out here knows that it's not reliable renewable power. I mean, the grid's down a lot. So our chargers can actually, we have a transfer switch in them. When you're not using them to charge your fleet, you flip a switch and now your building's running, and so your businesses are down. And so even companies that don't have this huge EV need that they see in the future, it just allows them to be powered, whether it's their cars or their building, and so this is important to them.
I guess one question I had on this is, are you guys seeing this more and more as almost like a semi-permanent solution?
I think as you're having difficulty getting these, like you say, Andrew, a substation, I mean, that can take ages to get a substation put in and cost a fortune.
Most people walk into this thing thinking, okay, this is just a temporary thing. I'm going to get connected. I call this like the stages of grief, right? I mean, you go, there's a realize I'm going to be able to charge it. And you go, oh, no, first thing that happens is denial. Oh, I can't charge my vehicles, right? And then, you go into the bargaining and you start thinking, well, maybe I'll use a public infrastructure to charge my vehicles. And that doesn't work. I mean, the manpower cost to go out to public chargers and the chargers themselves, 30% of them are down. They don't operate. There's interoperability issues. You've got to you control your energy delivery to your vehicles. And so what happens is they start relying on a solution. They see these grid connections getting pushed out further and further. The dollars keep going up and up, and that becomes a temporary, permanent solution. And then most people, when they do get this thing, they say, "Why would I get rid of it? I've got a standby generator. I've already sunk the cost in this thing. I'm going to leave it." And that's kind of like boiling a frog, right? I mean, you're turning up the heat, then let's go.
One thing I'd like to add to that is we currently do some. We provide charging for some autonomous fleets out there, and every 2 weeks, and it's been going on for a while. Every 2 weeks, they're like, we need another couple weeks. I think I've recently, within the last 3 months or so, I've written 5 different contracts for the same company because they're like, we're not going to get the infrastructure. They keep telling us that it's going to be tomorrow. Now it's next week. Oh, wait, maybe it's next year. Let's try first quarter. Let's try second quarter. So often we're finding that the idea that they're going to need to continue this process, just like Wayne said, why would we ever get rid of this? This is working great for us. We're meeting sustainability goals. These guys are reliable. When the unit has gone down, because nothing's perfect, right, Rob? Nothing's perfect. You have things go wrong, and Wayne will tell you, we've battled with. We were some of the first early adopters to bring this stuff in, and we battled over things, but we got them fixed quickly. So something goes wrong. We have a butt in the chair within 12 hours. We're flying to here, there, and everywhere and making sure, and this is key, critical operations are not being interrupted, right? And the reason I say it that way is because we also provide this technology for OEMs in their testing. Trucks, they're able to not have to worry. We can take this thing out in the middle of the desert. We can take this up to Minnesota where it's, negative temperatures. We can put them in cold chambers, which we've done. We've tested them with cold chambers. So all in all, we're making sure that the vehicles that are coming down the way are getting there quicker, because normally if they had to go find public charging stations to fill the vehicles to which they're going to be using for their testing, that's hours. So we're able to take their requirement that they say, okay, their engineers are like, it's going to take us 3 weeks because of this, and this. Oh, wait. Now we have a DC fast charger on the lot that's able to charge me up in an hour. Now I've taken 3 weeks of testing and I'm bringing it down to 7 days.
Question for you. So as far as electric buses, medium to heavy fleets right now, is this the future? What you're offering right now? Is everyone going to electrify their fleets? Or is this still an uphill battle for you in general?
We have no crystal ball. We don't know what's coming down the line. We've got battery technology that's really soaring through the roof. But right now, I think we're a heck of a bridge gap, right? We're not saying that we're the solution. We don't know what the solution is, but what we are saying is we can help you today with a cleaner version of what you may find on the corner when you're trying to use your electric vehicle.
And I think the biggest thing is that there isn't a solution right now. There is no effective long-term permanent solution. Like to your point about lead times for things like substations and high voltage lines, that's long-term strategy, right? You need something to fill a gap right now. And just to speak briefly about Europe, I mean, in Valencia, for example, where I live, pretty much every bus is electric. If it's not electric, it's hybrid electric. So that and the municipal vehicles, with the exception of the fire department, are pretty much all electric at this point. And this is a city that has pretty much fairly strongly rejected private EV car ownership. We're talking about a municipality that's saying, get rid of your car, don't have a car, have other modes of transportation, but their fleets are all electric.
Yep.
So, but they have infrastructure problems too. One question I had about this as I was thinking about, obviously there's the total opposite end of the spectrum. You've got the semi-permanent, but then I can imagine this would be great for things like events. You roll in, you're an event organizer, you drop down 3 or 4 of these large scale chargers, and now you can offer this benefit to your event attendees. Is that something you guys are doing?
Absolutely. So we have ability to run 20 amp circuits out of it. We've got plugs everywhere. We can piggyback off the generator even when it's charging. We've been at the Masters, right? So we've had units at race cars going around us, and we'll have a TV screen literally on the side of the unit, and we'll run promotions, we'll run videos of what we've done in the past. In the situation like you're talking about, we can power all those other canopies, and allow, a medical tech to run off of our power. We can, and we can all do like Wayne said, it's a flip of a switch, but it's a Bluetooth device. If you're not charging, send the power there. Right. So we see it great for FEMAs, or great for situations where it's, a natural event has happened and we need to get electric vehicles and people out of that area. So we charge those individuals up, we get them out. Once those vehicles are out, now all of the workers that are coming into their camps, we can power that, right?
Yeah, for better or for worse, I feel like the emergency disaster relief is a growth industry. So I guess you're really well positioned for that. Now, I know you also did something with NBC Sports Charge Across America. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that was great. So we worked with a group called Park My Fleet, and they were dispelling the disbelief that you could get across the country today in an electric vehicle. Now, obviously, we know charging time takes away the cannonball run aspect of making it in less than 24 hours, but we proved that it was possible. They had some great drivers, people that have never driven EVs before. They put them in some vehicles and they sent them across the country.
What year was this?
2020.
Okay, so
So
this was more of a this was, I guess, even though it's not that long ago, but this was almost like a proof of concept to show the world, hey, you can drive an EV across the country. Was that the sort of the premise here?
they made it fun. They really made it fun.
Mhm.
But what our purpose was, the units that I worked on were some of the first units ever that for a DC fast situation. They were the first mobiles in the country. We really pioneered this industry. And what we would do is, if by chance these vehicles were unable to make it to a level 2 or a DC fast charger, we would come in, side of the highway, on a bridge, on the bend, on the turn, worst possible place they could run out of energy. And we were able to pull in front of them, dispense the cord, and charge those vehicles up and get them to their next destination. So that was our role in it. I was very proud to be involved with it. I got my 15 seconds of fame. Everybody was, oh my gosh, there's Andrew.
That's wonderful. Now, while we're still on the sports subject, and this is something near and dear to my heart, I know in the pre-show conversation that we had, you mentioned something about the New York Jets. Why don't you tell me just a little bit more about your experience with that team, and all long-suffering fan notes aside, as a Jets fan here, for anyone that's listening out there, it's maybe I don't advise you to do it. Don't do it to your children. It's the worst team in the world, but they're awesome. And for some reason, I'm stuck with them. So when you told me that you did some business with them in Florham Park, I'd love to hear a little more about that.
Well, I have to remind you that I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide fan. And one of the best quarterbacks that ever played the Jets was.
Joe Namath.
You
Of
got
course.
it. My throwback jersey says Namath on the back, right? So we had the opportunity
It was all
to,
downhill from there.
hey, but you still got something to point to.
We do indeed.
Yep. So they had some players and they had some staff that, needed some just level 2 charging. But we had the opportunity to go in, meet with their infrastructure directors, met engineers there, got to walk through the facility. Absolutely beautiful. The facility was top notch. The people were fantastic. We really wanted to have the opportunity to put those in there. But unfortunately, we, just like anything else, partners are partners, and previous partners and incumbents are sometimes hard to beat. So we were unable to overcome that challenge.
And it happens. But, on that note, a facility like the New York Jets practice facility, obviously
Yep.
it's where people come in, spend some time. Level 2 charging makes perfect sense. So you're bidding on that job and you didn't get it. But there's so many more opportunities for those types of jobs. I'm thinking golf courses, obviously shopping malls. So, what's the outlook right now? How is that from a business perspective? How is that looking as far as being a growth industry right now? It seems like there should be more level 2 chargers everywhere I look, and I just don't see them yet. So, what's the holdup right now?
A big holdup right now is smart people looking at who's coming into their areas, right? If you own a condo facility, or if you own an Airbnb location, or if you own someplace where people are going to be attracted to spend a week, those individuals are really looking at the numbers. How many people are coming in driving electric vehicles? Who's asking for electric vehicle charging? But the biggest pitfall really is bringing in the power, making sure you get buy-in from the community to which you're involved in. You know, the classic, well, what's in it for me? It's hidden cost. It's, they, really want to do it. Then they find out that there's software and infrastructure, and you have to put the money up front. And, where is that money going to come from? And how much do I really make? And, it's wild, wild west of charging, man. People are out there just trying to sell shiny objects, right? Hey, look at my pretty little thing over here. You sure need this. And then they're like, okay, I just spent this much money to put it in, and I'm making $2 on a charge. What's my ROI? My ROI is what?
Yeah.
I mean, is that even really possible? We don't know. With our administration putting a freeze on some of those infrastructure monies at the state level, the $5 billion that was literally put aside for this specifically, then that's on freeze. People are still going to do it. I myself, I'm a tree hugger. I drive electric. I clean waterways, and I clean up the side of the road, and I'm trying to be as green as I can. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, right on Lake Erie, and we are the most non-seafaring community in the world because Detroit River really polluted us in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so, I personally feel like what I'm doing in this space is trying to make it a little greener from when I found it, right? And just try to do small grassroots things that I could improve the likelihood for my children and grandchildren, and yours as well.
That's awesome. And what you're saying here is the business case especially for these destination level 2 chargers is still kind of tough. And I can see that being the hurdle. And with the federal funds being frozen, that certainly is going to be a hindrance and slow the rollout, which I guess is conventional wisdom right now. And you're seeing it in the field, and you're seeing it on the ground. And obviously it seems like that's truly the case. All right. So what's next for mobile EV charging solutions? Where do you see yourself and your industry in the next, 5 to 10 years? And Wayne, that also goes for you as well with fleet electrification.
So with infrastructure, we're going to continue to grow. We're the full turnkey provider that really takes a active approach of making sure the individual that's placing these units knows exactly what they're getting into. They understand the timelines. They're going to continue. Our processes are really good. We make sure that everybody knows exactly where they're at any given day. Who's the last person to talk to them? Who's the next person to just jump on board? What was the last thing to say? And where are we going to be tomorrow? So we will continue to put units in the ground. We'll continue to work with individuals that need hard infrastructure, whether it's in a disenfranchised area, whether it's in, smaller fleet that can get away with level 2s because their charging requirements are only 5 p.m. to 6 a.m., right? That's 12 hours. Even a 7.5 is going to cover that for them, which isn't very bad. You can get that pushed through pretty quickly. So we'll continue to do a lot of that. We do a lot of home stuff. We've got some national accounts that we provide home installation. We're doing a lot of that throughout the country. We're doing a lot of level 2. And we're just going to have to see what happens with DC fast. It's hard infrastructure for DC fast, Scott. Like you said, it's just very difficult to timeline how long it's going to come in and then offset. You put $3 million into a project that has everything to tear up. I mean, out of your own, and you're going to wait 18 months on that money. I mean, that's tough.
Yeah.
I think one thing Scott said is kind of occurring here, and there's a paradigm shift of car ownership itself. We've engaged with every autonomous vehicle company, rideshare company that's out there, and they are every single one of them are EVs. There's not a nice vehicle.
No, that is absolutely set in stone already between Waymo and Tesla. which are really the two big ones standing right now. No, it's a pure electric future for them. There are no other alternates.
And when you do this at scale, the grid just fails. You've got to have some sort
You're
of
poet.
yeah, but you have to have some way to charge these vehicles and charge them fast. Because it's not like they sit on a level 2 charger for 12 hours. I mean, these things go out and you got to charge them and they go back out, and so we're seeing a lot of that. The other thing is the delivery companies. I mean, look at Amazon, right? They got these Rivians out there. Even with the amount of infrastructure these guys put in their grid, they still don't have enough power for the seasonal demands of their delivery vehicles. And these vehicles are now not just running, 8 hours a day. They've expanded their delivery hours to 12, 14 hours. And so level 2 doesn't work. So my focus really has been on this fast charging need. And it's just for us, it's exploding.
Yeah. And I
Well,
mean, I can echo that sentiment, having just exited a startup that owned a fleet of e-transits, that was in the last mile logistics space. So that energy management and that charging process, it was hugely complicated to keep those things charged. Wayne, one question I had was on your fast charging and your super fast charging, what can you get in these mobile units? What's your top end of speed?
Depends on the space. I mean, the more power requires the more footprint, right? Our sweet spot right now is 180 kilowatts. So
yeah, that's absolutely sufficient.
do the bigger stuff for the big rigs, but that's they're big. They're mobile, but they're as big as a tractor trailer. Our units that deliver 180 they'll fit in the standard parking spot.
Wayne, I want to just take a step back right now for a second. You mentioned something here which is really interesting. So Tesla's stock, the valuation is predicated on autonomy. It's the robotaxi. You're telling me, hey, the grid can't handle this. So all the analysts out there are thinking that these cars are going to be in every single street corner. Are you telling me that the grid, there's no way on earth that the grid will be able to keep up with these autonomous vehicles within the next 5 years?
I'm saying right now, this is a struggle. I mean, they are doing overbills. They're trying to beef up the infrastructure. But I think that if you look at Tesla per se, it's more of a distributed architecture. And they're not talking about having these massive charging stations. The way I looked at it was that these robo taxis would be, you could own them, right? And then
It's going to be
you're
both.
in the garage, and you flip the switch, and then
private.
now the robo taxis, it's sort of like an Airbnb, right? So you're providing the charging infrastructure at your house. So I think that's how they get scale.
And that's the good thing, I guess, about especially with autonomous vehicles. They are not beholden to necessarily park in the same spot. They could be all over town. So I guess that would help lighten the load with the grid.
Right, but if you look at, if you take Tesla aside and look at some of the other guys like Waymo, Zoox out there, they're not in the same model. They're basically putting in fleets of autonomous vehicles in urban areas. They all go back to the lot and then they get charged. And so, that's our sweet spot. We go in there and I actually works with one of this vehicle company that no longer exists. We are charging 300 cars a night, every night.
Wow.
In 130-degree blacktop temperature. Remember that?
Yeah, you had mentioned there that you do a lot of this testing in extreme environments. I'm sure it's just going to continue to get more extreme. So that's good to hear that your system is robust enough to handle those sort of loads at those temperatures.
It wasn't easy. We had to come up with a VP of engineering, right? The guy was a genius. We had to figure out how we can, because chargers only work in a specific situation and it's in a climate that is conducive to their optimal usage. And we had to come up with temperature controlled charging bays. We had to come up with, how do we take stale air and move them out of these units? And we came up with very aggressive, smart ways to make sure our cabinets are 86, 92 degrees at most. And we're heating them, we're cooling them, we're pulling air out, we're adding more air. So, I've heard it 1,000 times. Well, isn't it just a generator on a truck with a charger? Well, in theory, yeah. And then those people will go out and say, oh, well, I can do that. And 3 years later, $500,000 in, they still don't have a working product, right? It took us 18 months to get our generation 1 out there. People are touting that they were able to put their units out in 6 months. Well, you put Wayne's unit in front of one of those units and it's night. They definitely don't understand the technology in the way that Electrify Hub has put it together and streamlined it specifically on the software diagnostics and the software telematics. Nobody has a better system out there than we do. And the service side that we set up is amazing. You have a problem, they put a button to share.
It sounds like an incredible solution here, Electrify EVSE, along with Electrify Hub. You're in a perfect position right now to help us get through this green energy revolution that we're a part of. And I think you're an amazing cog in the wheel here. Andrew, Wayne, can you tell us how the listeners can find you or Electrify EVSE and Electrify Hub online?
To find me, Andrew.Richard at electrifyevse.com. That's where you can find me, or on any given river in Georgia on my kayak or hiking up a hill. Now you might find me there as well.
You can find me at Wayne at Electrify Hub.
Terrific. Well, gentlemen, thank you once again for being part of the show. I want to wish you the best of luck. A reminder for all the listeners at home to follow us on LinkedIn, like, subscribe to the podcast, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Your review or feedback is always appreciated. Any subject you'd like us to cover, just leave it in the comments. We will see you all next week on the next episode of the Urban EV Podcast.